Hey, beloved. God bless you. Welcome to the Urban Apologetics Channel. Man, we are going to do some stuff tonight. I hope that you are ready. Let me say this about 3 times as I'm saying welcome. No kids. If you've got any children that are, you're watching this, projecting it onto your television or anything like that, no kids tonight. Now, I'm not going to do something that's inappropriate, but in order to truly understand what we're dealing with, it is necessary for me to kind of go there tonight. So, no kids. I'll repeat that in just a minute. Welcome, 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 welcome to the Man Cave. I am your host, Pastor Jackie Jackson, desiring to make you the absolute smartest person in the room as it pertains to these topics. I don't know everything, but I do know some things, praise God. And those things that I know, I like to share, right? If I know it, I want you to know it. I don't want there to be anything, that I've studied, put my time in with, that you are not aware of. So tonight, as I said, it's an adult study, that colorful adult story time. That's about as colorful as it's going to get. Want to remind you that simultaneously, right now at the time of this recording, that this is also on the radio, and I am celebrating my 12th anniversary on the radio. It has been 12 good years, too. I run into people all the time that have heard the broadcast, are blessed by the broadcast. We do a variety of subjects that are a blessing. Me in the studio, me live at a church, and an interview. Getting ready to do a great interview in just a bit with some wonderful ladies that went to Kenya to serve. And so looking forward to being with them and doing that kind of thing. I just enjoy it so much. I really, really do. So I want you tonight, Corvette clock's a little behind us here, folks. But I want you tonight to have an open mind, be willing to have a paradigm shift. It was my thought initially that I would start what I call the series bow. Putting a bow on a series, tying it off, bringing everything together. But things keep happening, right? That's my intent, but things keep happening. And I feel like I can't come to the close when there are things that are, for lack of a better word, unusual that are taking place. So as we continue in our study, looking at the Israel-Palestine conflict, this is message number 4. Now you may be running into some shorts online, so just take a look at it. If it says Israel-Palestine Conflict 2, and that's the whole thing, it may say then short number 3 or something like that, so you can keep pace with what's going on. Let me bring this up where you can see this one better. The Pope John Paul said there is no true peace without fairness, true justice, truth, justice, and solidarity. You got to see people as being human beings, right? And when this conflict started, 62% of people understood this conflict to be that Israel was doing something that was unfair. Now that number is 95%. I pray that you get on the bandwagon, that you understand that this truly is genocide. So let's do a historical, it's a little bit of history so that I kind of bring you up to speed for this new stuff, just in case this is your first time being with me with this, or just as a reminder. So Theodore Herzl is considered the founder of modern Zionism, and his desire was to create a state for Israel, a place for them to be. Now, that started long before some of the other things that happened, right? But in order to create that, let me do this a little bit different. In order to create that, there had to be a place for them to go, but a situation in World War II, and I'm going to be very brief with this. I'm sorry, it's in other videos. I got to go quickly because I want this fresh stuff to stand out. So World War II happens, and, there's 1 million displaced Ashkenazi Jews. Now, we've talked about this. The Ashkenazi are not, you can't be an anti-Semite because they don't descend from Shem, they descend from Japheth. Okay, but nevertheless, they are displaced. 6 million of them had been killed in concentration camps and firing squads, all the atrocities that Hitler committed. And now they have no place to go. So they make an attempt to go to Jerusalem. 100,000 of them get on, a ship and travel, and they get turned away. And so now they've got to do something that's going to put them in a position where they can actually live there. So what happens with the support of the British and others, including the United States, they go and they wreak havoc on the people that are already living there. Trip on the ships, 1946. 1947, they start moving in and start, doing things to take over. 1948 is the Nakba. 750,000 to 900,000 men, women, and children. Now, the number that I've heard is 750, but just going by this, what this says, they are displaced. It's estimated that there were, and you have to estimate, I'll tell you why, it's estimated that there were 500 villages and towns that were depopulated and demolished. Marsha Dayan, if you know who he was one of the Israeli generals. He had the patch over his eye. And he said, the way we erase them is to, we'll redraw the lines and the maps and all of that, and there'll be no memory that they were ever here. So you need to understand from that these people occupied this. This was their land. Hold on just a second. Take just a little edge off of that. They occupied this was their homes. I've given an example of the 275 loop, which is here in Cincinnati, and the 275 loop. Imagine everybody from inside that loop. San Antonio has one, Indianapolis has one. Everybody with inside that loop gets pushed out with absolutely nowhere to go. Nothing's provided for them. This was 75 years ago. Well, if you're going to do this to people, you have to make them less than. You have to demean them. You have to treat them as if they're subhuman. It's exactly what Hitler had just done a few years before, which baffles me. This had just happened to you. People were lined up, mass graves. I mean, all of that is what happens. And then it just devastated them. And again, they've got nowhere to go. This time we're bombing a refugee camp, so there's really nowhere for them to go. I'll get to that in a minute. but just a complete mistreatment of these folks, being put out of their own homes. And an apartheid state is created out of that. And America, Harry Truman, who was the one that told the British, that they only took in 5% of not refugees. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Immigrants, sorry. And we only took in 5%. However, Harry Truman basically said, let them come in. We supported it. After the Nakba, after what happened, we declared that Israel was a state, was a nation. So what happened to the Palestinians? He created Gaza and the West Bank, pushed them out of their own land to develop whatever they could. But you have to have a specific, as I said, mentality in order to pull this off. Now, I'm going to do something tonight that I've never done before. I'm going to show you more videos than I ever have so that other people can make the point. Other people can make the point and you can understand what I'm saying. And so we'll watch these and we will talk on the other side.
In 1937, Winston Churchill said of the Palestinians, I quote, "I do not agree that the dog in a manger has the final right to the manger, even though he may have lain there for a very long time. I do not admit that right. I do not admit, for instance, that a great wrong has been done to the Red Indians of America or the black people of Australia. I do not admit that a wrong has been done to these people by the fact that a stronger race, a higher grade race, a more worldly wise race, to put it that way, has come in and taken their place." That set the trend for the Israeli state's attitude towards Palestinians. In 1969, Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir said, "Palestinians do not exist." Her successor, Prime Minister Levi Eshkol, said, "What are Palestinians? When I came here to Palestine, there were 250,000 non-Jews, mainly Arabs and Bedouins. It was a desert, more than underdeveloped, nothing." Prime Minister Menachem Begin calls Palestinians two-legged beasts. Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir called them grasshoppers who could be crushed. This is the language of heads of state, not the words of ordinary people. Is it really impossible for Jewish people who suffered so cruelly themselves, more cruelly perhaps than any other people in history, to understand the vulnerability and the yearning of those whom they have displaced? Does extreme suffering always kindle cruelty? What hope does this leave the human race with? The world is called upon to condemn suicide bombers, but can we ignore the long road they have journeyed on before they arrived at this destination? September 11th, 1922 to September 11th, 2002. 80 years is a long time to have been waging war. Is there some advice the world can give the people of Palestine? Should they just take Golda Meir's suggestion and make a real effort not to exist?
This kind of thinking, this kind of indoctrination has been going on at least since 1948 on a grand scale. But the quote from Winston Churchill is disheartening, because I've always admired Winston Churchill, and I can separate, good things that somebody did, the courage that they showed, that kind of thing, from other things. But it's very disappointing to hear something like this. But But this shows you that from early on, there was this negative thinking. I mean, let me say this, and hopefully I'll say it again later. Imagine a generation, because it's happened here, being indoctrinated to think a particular way about a group of people. And that indoctrination happens not just with adults thinking that way, that, in the beginning of whatever the atrocity is, like the Nakba, right? The atrocity. But imagine somebody's born and their entire life they are told these people are subhuman. They're less than you. Your entire life, that's all you've ever heard. Well, that happened in America with black folks. It happened in Germany with the Hitler Youth. He got rid of books and other things like that. Mein Kampf was required reading. He indoctrinated them so they were willing to fight for him in anything he wanted. Because all they had ever heard is everybody's less than you. You are the greatest. You deserve to rule the world. Now, you may have never heard me say this before, but I say it all the time. Ain't no God in that nowhere. God didn't create one group of people more intelligent, more purposeful, more important than another. What kind of God would that be? But there are people that have been indoctrinated to think that way, and they sure do. But that's not the way. Jesus didn't die more for one group than another. However, I might as well throw this in since I went there. You need to understand that that's why it was important to call the Ashkenaz the original Jews, because of their skin color, when Jesus looked like this. And that wouldn't make black people superior either. But the point is that if we make him look like us and we're already in authority, and when missionaries would go into different countries and they would colonize that country, this is before 1948, when they would do it, Middle Ages, Renaissance, 1882, the Berlin Conference. When they would do it, they would go in, and one of the first things they would do is have children start drawing and depicting Jesus as somebody that's white. Because if he looks like me, then I'm superior to you. I have a better hold on God than you do, so you should submit to me. That's the whole idea. And what the Zionists have done, as you look at this picture, top left, what they've done is infiltrated different areas of media, not just in America, but in other places in the world, but definitely in America. Getting into the financial markets, things like that. That's why as soon as someone like Kyrie Irving says something, they come after you with he didn't even say anything wrong. I've got the 2 books over there that he was talking about the video for. There's nothing anti-Semitic in any of those, other than what I've been trying to explain to you, who the original Jews are. That's in there. But there's no denial of the Holocaust. He even mentions it, that it happened. But, oh man, when you control the narrative, when you control it, you can get people to say whatever you want. Listen, I've been a participant, member, however you want to put it. We didn't have membership in the Vineyard Church, a white evangelical church. And there are some churches you can walk into, if you so much as say Israel, they start screaming and shouting. Because the conditioning is Israel gets to do whatever they want, as if God let them do that in Scripture. The picture on the right. That picture, images. That's why I'm careful what I show you. Images are 60,000 times more powerful than words, have more of an impact than words. So because you've seen things over and over again, Moses and, the Ten Commandments movie, all of that, Jesus and, movies about Christ and at Easter and all of that kind of stuff, because you've seen that over and over again. Elizabeth Taylor is Cleopatra, as if Cleopatra was white. I saw something the other day where a guy made the Canaanites white-skinned people. I need a sip of juice on that one. And people were applauding him for his research. I'd say about 90% of what he was talking about in his research was right, but that part was wrong. And other parts. I mean, he's got everybody in Egypt and Africa. They're all, anyway, wasn't planning on spending too much time there. The point, however, is this. If you're told a lie over and over again, it can start sounding like the truth. And if you've heard that lie from birth, you may not know at all what the truth. I know I didn't. Till I started researching. And as I started researching, I was baffled because now my mind has to switch from the way I was thinking to this new things that I found, and even seeing it and seeing other research that's been done, peer-reviewed research. It was still difficult to flip my mind over because I've heard the opposite for so long. That was done on purpose. Let's watch this video with Jimmy Carter that reinforces everything that I just said to you. And we'll talk about it on the other side.
Dominate the life of the Palestinian people.
Why don't Americans know what you have seen?
Americans don't want to know. And many Israelis don't want to know what is going on inside Palestine. It's a terrible human rights persecution that far transcends what any outsider would imagine. And there are powerful political forces in America that prevents any objective analysis of the problem in the Holy Land. I think it's accurate to say that not a single member of Congress with whom I'm familiar would possibly speak out and call for Israel to withdraw to their legal boundaries or to publicize the plight of the Palestinians, or even to call publicly and repeatedly for good faith peace talks. There hadn't been a day of peace talks now in more than 7 years. So this is a taboo subject, and I would say that if any member of Congress did speak out, as I've just described, they would probably not be back into Congress the next term.
Who are these forces that you're talking about?
Well, very effective work of the American-Israeli group called AIPAC, which is performing its completely legitimate task of convincing Americans to support the policies of the Israeli government. And AIPAC is not dedicated to peace. They're dedicated to inducing the maximum support in America, in the White House, in the Congress, and in the public media for whatever policies the Israeli government has at a particular time, and they're extremely effective.
Do you agree with Walt and Mearsheimer, their new book, The Israel Lobby, about the power of AIPAC determining U.S. foreign policy? I
have to say I haven't read the book. I've read stories about it. I don't really know about the details of it, but I do know that AIPAC is very powerful and completely legitimate. I'm not complaining because that's their purpose in life, and AIPAC, I think, was organized in the distant past, I think, when Eisenhower was president, and they've grown in influence, and in some ways They are to be admired.
Did they influence you as president?
Not really, because I was immune from those pressures. When I was elected president, I came out of nowhere. Nobody thought I was going to win until the last minute. And so I wasn't obligated to them. And the Israelis completely dominate the life of the Palestinian people.
Why don't Americans...
I've showed you two books. Well, anyway, I can do some of this in a recap. But Jimmy Carter wrote a book, Peace, Not Apartheid. He addressed this years ago. The copyright on my book is 2016, but I really believe that he wrote it before then because I'd heard about it. But anyway, 2016, been out for a while. Certainly, that is his opinion. I talked to you in previous videos and talked about I had professors, Cincinnati Christian University, that would go to the Holy Land every year. They stayed on the Palestinian side. They refused to stay on the Israel side because of how Israel was treating Palestine. And they didn't want to give them any money, any support. Now, these guys are more conservative. They created conservatism as far as I'm concerned. But they're also Christians, and they understand the difference between right and wrong. And they refuse to be a party to what was going on with these precious people. Benjamin Netanyahu ran his campaign. He said he does not want a two-state solution. He doesn't want the kind of peace that the rest of us have been talking about. That's not what he's after. Now let me show you what I've showed you before. What his leaders think. I want you to first of all know exactly where this came from. All right? Navarra Media. And here are these are snapshots I took from an actual interview because I told you they try to control the media. So they send out surrogates to CNN and MSNBC. They send out to surrogates in Europe and here to try to sell, and it's blatantly obvious, but try to sell that what Israel is doing is justified. Sure, what happened on October 7th was wrong. Any murder is wrong. But where did that come from? Why did they do that? Because of thinking like this. We all have one common goal: erasing the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. That's a leader. And the cockamamie answer that this surrogate gave was just really? You can see there who they are, but this one, I definitely want you to see that this is the president. Israel has a prime minister and a president. The president says it's an entire nation out there that's responsible. Women, children, people that are in hospitals. The entire nation is responsible for October the 7th. So therefore, they all deserve to die. Now, I saw a number, and I've seen a couple, that we are up to 28,000 men, women, and children that have been killed. The part of that bothers me is that Hamas only has 30,000 members, 30,000 soldiers. What are you doing? It's genocide. It's genocide. We are now actually rolling out the Gaza Nakba, the catastrophe. He said that out of his mouth. What we did to them, 1947, 1948, and I mean, we're talking about people being slaughtered and buried. We're talking about executions. We're talking about not just them being displaced. We're talking about murders and atrocities and rapes and all of that kind of stuff on a scale that doesn't even compare to October 7th. And this cat saying we're rolling, and they are. That's the thing, and they are. They are doing it again. With all of the modern media that we have, with all of that in place, they are doing it again. This is what's going on. They tell these people to leave northern Gaza. They're killing them as they go. Refugee camps. They're bombing refugee camps. They're bombing hospitals. Because they're saying that Hamas is in the basement. Okay, then strategically go in and get them out. Why are you bombing units that have babies? Why are you bombing sick people with cancer? Why destroy entire hospitals? Because you say somebody's in the basement, and there have been situations where they get there, nobody was in the basement. Killed all those people for nothing. Why? Because it is genocide. So now, if you take a look at that, you'll see Rafah, the Rafah crossing, which is on the Gaza-Egypt border. 1.3, heard a couple other numbers, 1.4, but we're in the neighborhood. I'll go with 1.3 million people have been pushed to that area, have ran to that area. Now, some people trying to get there, I showed you a video last week. They're carrying white flags and they're being sniped, unalived. I talked about 3 men who were Israelis that had escaped captivity, and they killed them because they're killing everybody. I have a video. I can't remember. I don't think I've put it into any of the sessions that I've had with you, where soldiers are chanting. This has a look that up. Within that video, it has there's some discussion about that. These soldiers are jumping up and down and shouting and screaming, and talking about how they're going to kill everybody. And guess what they're doing? They're killing everybody, everything that's moving. There's information that generals have said to the soldiers: if they're moving, kill them. If it's moving, kill it. Doesn't matter. Oh my goodness. Got a couple things I'm going to show you. The kids need to be out of the room. Let's look at this, and we'll talk on the other side.
A serious question for Western Christians. I understand that you have most likely been brainwashed by Western media your whole entire life. But I need you to understand, and this is coming from a Palestinian Christian, that there has never once been an incident in Palestine where a Muslim unalived a Christian because of their faith. Never once. I mean, do you think we would still have churches standing if we didn't get along? Do you think the Muslims would hold the key to the Holy Sepulchre if we didn't get along? Do you realize that there's Christians in Gaza who get along with Muslims? Do you realize that they don't have to wear the hijab because they're Christian? Do you realize that the Muslims respect our religion? Do you realize that we have the same exact culture, just different religion? It's not what you guys think it is. It's not. So stop. Like, seriously, you need to educate yourself. Palestine is like no other place. It's so holy. And our only enemy is the illegal Zionists. It's It's not the Jews. The Jews are literally our cousins. It's Zionism, Eastern Europeans who are literally atheists. Zionism was created by an atheist. I mean, come on, you guys really can't be this crazy.
Most people don't even know that there is a Christian, a strong Christian community in Gaza, and that they have gotten along. That a church dating, I don't know how many hundreds of years back, 1,000 or more, got destroyed because they don't care. Look at the size of that hole. I remember seeing that when it first happened, when they were just bombing everything. There's nothing left of a Christian church but a hole. No outcry, as she said. No outcry at all. I don't know what to say. It should matter to us as believers that believers are being killed and their bloodline doesn't have anything to do with it. Doesn't have anything to do with it. All right, let's watch this. And we will talk on the other side. Listen very carefully to what she is trying to say about law, international law, what the rules are supposed to be. I promise you they're being broken constantly, but she'll lay it out for you. I've listened to Claire Daly on some other things that she's explained to her parliament. Here we go.
To the millions of Europeans who've marched in order to have the upholding of international law and human rights validated by having a ceasefire in Gaza, to hear a representative of the EU saying that your motivation in the Red Sea is because of an unacceptable violation of international law, when the crimes people are witnessing on their TVs are the likes of which we have never seen. And EU authorities have not only not done anything, but have been openly declaring that they are prepared to ignore the outcomings of the International Court of Justice. So how is that upholding international law? And is the lives of people not more important than commerce? I think as well there is a bit of a problem with talking about peace in Yemen when we have illegal acts being perpetrated by our so-called like-minded partners and 3 member states supporting them. And the EU has nothing to say about that. Clearly, you couldn't care less about peace in Yemen if you're standing by and seeing civilians being bombed in Yemeni cities who've had nothing got to do with this. So I suppose my questions are quite targeted. Do you accept the claim by the Yemenis that they are only targeting Israeli ships and those destined to part of the occupied Palestinian territories, and that they are doing that in order to exercise pressure on Israel, a pressure which the EU could have done economically, for example, by suspending the EU-Israel Association Agreement and taking other efforts? They also say that their actions will stop once humanitarian aid is allowed to get in and access the people of Palestine who desperately need it. Again, a situation upheld by international law. So would it not be more productive to engage in that diplomatically rather than using it as an excuse for more militarism in the area? Do you realise how, I suppose,
Oh, my. John Caller. He is with Med Global, and they go into a variety of areas across the globe and do work, in war-torn areas, that kind of thing, to help you know, with the devastation. And I was watching MSNBC. This was just the other day. This is one of the reasons why I had to just go ahead and, you know, not start working towards the series Bo, because the things he was saying, I mean, I already talked about the people with the white flags and bombing indiscriminately, all that stuff that's been going on. And then he comes on and starts talking about, he's a pediatrician. So when he goes into an environment, he's working with the kids. And I found one story after another. This one, I'm telling you, I'm warning you. When you hear this story, now I actually have the interview that was done with the mother. It's got subtitles. So that makes it even more real. I thought that might be too devastating to even see that, where this mother is talking about what happened to her 3-year-old child, and he was discussing what's happening with other children. Let me prepare you. Snipers are killing children on purpose. If you're 3, you cannot be a threat. In this instance, you're going to see the level of cruelty. If you missed it, I'll explain it to you. Here we go.
Smiling, happy, alive. The last good memories his parents have of their son, who was 3.5 years old. He was in the arms of his 20-year-old cousin Hadil, a medical student at university, when they were gunned down. Their last moments are captured in this video. But there was a third person with them that day.
I went to buy some clementines with Hadil and Imad, and we came under fire. We hid at our neighbor's house and stayed there for an hour. Once the shooting stopped, we left the house. Hadil handed me the bag of clementines, and she carried Imad in her arms. Then we came under fire again. I managed to run away, but Hadil was shot and killed immediately. Imad was still alive.
Neighbors, using the buildings as cover from sniper fire, do what they can. The dust being kicked up as the bullets continue to fly.
People noticed he was still alive and tried to rescue him. They held out a stick for him to grab onto, but he did not respond. He was looking at his cousin and refused to leave her alone. He then started moving a reach for the stick, so they shot and killed him.
2 months since the shooting, and a makeshift market in Sheikh Radwan in northern Gaza is busy. Children no older than Imad walk the streets.
What makes this worse and more painful for us as Hadil's parents and Imad's mother is this unfolded before our eyes without us being able to say goodbye to our children. Hadil's mother was unable to give her one last kiss. The neighbors took their bodies and buried them while the shooting was still ongoing. We couldn't say goodbye to our children.
Haroon walks to the cemetery where they were hastily buried. It used to be the neighborhood football pitch. There's no tombstone for them, but he's determined that their names will be known and never forgotten. Mike Lappel, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
I hate to do these back to back like this, but this is the best way for this to be handled. Go ahead, watch this video, and we'll work our way towards the conclusion.
Israeli forces targeted a vehicle here at the Al-Jalaa interchange north of Gaza City, killing several people, most of them women and children. This blood here is from the bombing.
I was in my car, which you can see over there. A loud explosion then shook the area, and we all scattered in different directions. When we came back, we found a civilian car had been targeted with 5 or 6 bodies inside. We've managed to pull them out in pieces, including 2 babies. We found milk bottles on the ground. It is obvious they were out shopping. We found milk, carrots, and potatoes here. We pulled those babies out in pieces. 2 babies. Absolutely unfathomable. Nobody imagined something like this could happen. We pulled them out in pieces. And it all happened without any warning.
I'm still looking for body parts. We've already collected several pieces of the babies' bodies. They had biscuits, not weapons or anything of that sort.
This is another massacre committed by the Israelis against a Palestinian family that was out looking for basic necessities. Israeli warplanes targeted them and killed them on the spot.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
I think those videos are self-explanatory. No heart. They don't see these people as human. They don't care. This picture on your right is to remind you what this is really all about. They want to build the David Ben Gurion Canal right through northern Gaza. We've talked about it before, so I won't get into that. I'm closing out for tonight. Zionism, true Zionism, is terrorism. These people aren't even Jewish, as the young girl said. They're not even Jewish. They have an agenda. They work their way into areas of society, especially in media. And they control it. They control the narrative and tell you what they want you to think. But that picture on the right, that's the goal. That's what they're after. And in order to do it, they have to move these people out that they consider as less than in order to pull it off. So pray for Israel, beloved. Pray for Israel. Pray for Palestine. Pray for a ceasefire, that all of this comes to an end. I'm Pastor Jackie Jackson. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm hoping we can move on to the bow next time, but these atrocities are unique. And because they are unique, I just feel like I need to share with you what we need to be praying about